Hello, Gareth here, and this is part 3 of outdoor watercolour painting. So in this part we're talking about your watercolour painting kit. So maybe the most important thing, but it's also quite lengthy, and I want to make it as simple as possible. So if you click on the link below, you can see my article on this and get the full details. So basically the most important thing in this whole video about your watercolor painting kit is to make it as light as possible. Take the minimum, the absolute minimum. So what do I mean by that? So I mean something like just 3 brushes, just 3 colors is enough, and just 1 small pad about this kind of size, something that you can easily fit into a backpack. So that's basically what I mean. So that's the number 1 lesson to learn in this video. Travel as light as possible with the minimum number of materials. Taking a lot of materials will really not help you with outdoor watercolor painting. So I'm going to go through the items each individually, and first of all I'm going to talk about brushes. So like I said, I will normally take about 3 brushes. So these are what I take. My first one is my hake, Japanese hake. So there you go. It's not very wide, just about 2 centimeters. What's that? Almost an inch, not quite. So this is my power. This is the brush that does all the work. Yeah, this brush does all the labor. Then I've got my liner brush. This is my fancy brush. I almost said fancy man. This is my fancy brush. So this is what I do all my lines with, yeah? All my funny squiggly lines with this brush. I love this brush. It's so elegant, yeah? It's a wonderful brush. Liner brush, sometimes called a rigger brush. Okay, and then here is my bamboo brush. So this is really useful. Because it gives like a rough edge, very rough edge, but when you bring the hairs together it can give you a lovely thin line as well. So I can use it like a round brush for nice edges, but I can also use it in a rough way too. So very useful. So those are my 3 main friends, if you like. So what next? Also, sometimes I will use a round brush. There's a round brush. This is a very nice round brush, but most round brushes are okay. And mine might be a little bit smaller than that normally for the size I'm using, the small pad. And also I might use a big mop like this. I love these big mops. They're beautiful brushes, but they can be a bit expensive. So you don't have to buy these straight away. You can use a hake instead, but they're very nice brushes. So I might also use a really big hake, a really wide one, if I'm painting big, but normally when I go outdoors I'm just painting small. So I hope that's okay. I hope that's useful. Now, next thing is water, the water container. So what you put your water in. So this is what I often use at home, and you can fold it down like that, or you can push down and out it comes. So that's really nice. But the only problem with this is if you're using an easel and it's not got a tray, then you need something with holes or a handle so you can tie it with some string to your easel. But maybe if you're a beginner, doesn't matter because you're sitting on the ground, something like that. Yeah, so anyway, these are very nice for holding your water. So I sometimes use one of them. Okay, and I sometimes use one with a handle. that I tie to my easel. Okay, what next? Paints. So basically you can do many paintings with just 3 colors. So hopefully on this video I'm going to show you a big series now of paintings that are all done with just 3 colors, and I hope you'll be impressed by how good they look. I think they really look good. So these are the colors that I use. The first one is yellow ochre. I'm not sure if you can see that. Oh, it's upside down. There we go. Maybe. Okay, anyway, yellow ochre. And the next one is permanent alizarin crimson. So can you see that? I'm sorry if you can't see that. And the next one is phthalo blue, and you can't see that. Oh, there you go. Sorry about that. But ultramarine blue is also okay. I use this color because it's more powerful. I like power. I'm a bit of a heavy-handed watercolor painter, actually. I like power, powerful colors. So those 3 colors, yellow ochre and alizarin crimson, permanent, and phthalo blue, I think that's how you pronounce it. That's all you really need. And hopefully you're seeing a lot of paintings now on the screen that I've done with just these 3 colors. And the one more that I would add is white, titanium or titanium white. So I find that very useful for highlights. So that's really all you need. But if you go to my article, I give you a full list of the whole set that you could possibly need. There might be 1 or 2 additional colors you might want to add, but with that set, that would be enough for just about everything. Roughly, I can tell you what they are. So basically it's 3 groups of colors. So this is way too serious. I don't think you need all these colors, but if you're very serious, then here you go. This is my full set of paints almost. So 3 groups. The first group is earthly colors. I call them earthy colors, whatever. So that's your yellow ochre, your burnt sienna, and your burnt umber. Earthy colors. Next, you've got your blues, and I really only use about 2 blues. So one is my phthalo blue, and the other one is cerulean blue. What a name! I love that name, but I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. But if you go to my site, you'll find the name, cerulean blue. It's basically just a light blue. It's a beautiful color, but it is a little expensive, that one. So paints come in different prices. Nearly all my paints are the cheapest, but that one is expensive. So if you want to look for an alternative, then just look for a light blue one. But that one's very good. And all of these paints as well are permanent, which I didn't write in my article because it's mostly for beginners and amateurs. So it's not too important, but I've always used permanent colors and the cheapest most of the time. But cerulean blue is just a beautiful color, and so that's why it's here. Okay, so the third group I call brights or colorfuls, and that's basically alizarin crimson, which is a bit of a dark red, and then pyrrole red. Now pyrrole red, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, is a nice bright red, but I'm not sure if it's actually the best red. I choose it because it's not poisonous, and I've got a daughter, and maybe I'm worrying there too much because she doesn't use my paints a lot, just now and again, and I doubt it's that dangerous. But the poisonous one is cadmium red, but that's the one most watercolor artists seem to use, so you might want to follow them rather than follow me. But I use pyrrole red, but I haven't really tested that against cadmium red to check which is the best. So, you know, your choice. And then also I might use a yellow now and again, like is it oh my goodness, how do I pronounce this? Aurelian yellow. I've got no idea. But anyway, I didn't even include that, but just a bright yellow, that's all. And then sometimes I include a green. There's a green, cobalt green. I quite like that green, but I don't really use any other greens. And of course my titanium or titanium white. And that's it. Those are all my paints. But like I said, the first three I mentioned, I would strongly recommend you use just them at first. And to be honest, you don't really need to take your tubes of paint with you. You can just put them in your palette, you know, squeeze them into your palette and just take your palette. Trust me, travel light. The only one that I would take is my tube of white paint. Okay, so my palette. So I used to have a metal palette because, I don't know, I just thought metal was better. But it does actually get very hot when you're outside on a summer day because metal conducts heat. So it starts to, your thumb starts to sizzle. So maybe a metal palette isn't the best, but I've noticed other people seem to like them as well. So I know it sounds a bit cheap, but plastic is not only cheap, but great. So I strongly recommend a very simple palette. Don't get one with lots and lots of wells in it or grooves or pockets in it, whatever you call them. Get one with just 3 or 4 deep wells. So they need to be deep so you can make big mixes. And you've got a few spaces to put paints. So I'll show you my palette. I love this palette. Look at this. It's got a lid. So that means it's airtight. So if I put some like wet, slightly damp tissue in there, it should keep my paints wet. I'm so lazy that I never do that, but I like that. And I like being able to close it because that's convenient, right? When you go painting, you need a palette with a lid. Otherwise, you've got to cover it with cling film. And then if you look inside, look at that. 1, 2, 3. 3 big wells, and this one is huge. It's huge. So I can make a really big mix in there. It's beautiful, isn't it? And look at that. These are all the colors I will use. So maybe I used a few more than I said. So if I did, I'm sorry about that. Oh yeah, that's brilliant orange. I love that for faces. And I've got a dark green there. That's Viridian. That I was just experimenting with that. There's the Aurelian, oh God help me, but you know what, you'll find it. Just get permanent yellow, but it's something like Aurelian yellow, something like that. But lovely colours, right? And a lovely palette. So I couldn't find this at Dick Blick online, what do you call it, art store, but at least now you've got a good idea of what a fantastic palette looks like. Isn't it fantastic? Yeah. So I bought this one in Japan, but you're probably, yeah, it says made in Korea. But anyway, I'm sure you'll find one in America or England similar to that. Okay, so let's move on.